He was already sitting there when I arrived. Same table, same smile, same watch I once considered buying before deciding it was too expensive, even on sale. What threw me off wasn't that he looked comfortable. It was that everyone else at the table seemed to think he belonged. I wasn't late. I was 10 minutes early, like always. Mira had texted me that morning. Table 11, rooftop entrance. Business formal. Don't overthink it. So I didn't. Until I saw him. They were laughing. Her hand was on his arm, just lightly. Too lightly, like she didn't even notice it was there, which somehow made it worse. He leaned over to whisper something, and she tilted her head toward him like a sunflower chasing light. The only empty chair left was next to him. I sat down. No one looked surprised, not even her. "Glad you made it," she said. Not hi, not you look nice, not even a kiss on the cheek. Just a short clipped acknowledgement, like an RSVP confirmation. The man turned and offered his hand. "I've heard a lot about you." I stared at it, for a second too long. Then I shook it. It was warm, too warm, like he'd been here a while. The name tag in front of him read guest, just guest. I glanced at hers. Still said Mira L., head of strategic operations. Same as last year, same as always. The server came by. He ordered for both of them, without asking. I tried to focus on the menu. The words swam. Chilean sea bass, roasted duck, grilled betrayal. At one point, someone raised a glass to the silent champions behind the scenes. People clapped. She clapped. He clapped. I toasted too. Because I'm polite. I didn't say a word until dessert. That's when it happened. She turned, as if suddenly remembering I existed, and said with a smile, "Oh, did you two meet already? This is Simon. He's a close friend." She said it like she'd practiced it, like it was pre-approved language. Simon. That was his name. Not guest, not colleague, not business partner, just Simon. And I, idiot that I am. I raised my glass again. "To close friends," I said. The room didn't go silent. No one gasped, nothing shattered. But in my chest, I swear I heard something tear. By the time Wednesday rolled around, my head still felt stuck at that table. I kept replaying every second, like some involuntary loop I couldn't break. Her tone, his grin, that tie clip, the same model I gave her for Christmas 3 years ago, except this one had an engraving on it, tiny, barely visible. But I saw it when he reached for his wine glass. Breathe, building break. A company slogan, an inside joke, something more personal. I didn't ask. I just filed it away like everything else I wasn't supposed to notice. That night, she came home late. Not suspiciously late, just enough to make me question whether it was me being paranoid or her being precise. She didn't seem off. That was the part that messed with me. She was humming, actually humming, pulling leftovers from the fridge, peeling off her earrings, chatting about how the salmon at the dinner was dry but ambitious, whatever that meant. I asked calmly, "So, Simon?" She didn't flinch. She didn't pause. She said, "Yeah, Simon. He's on the Lisbon project. I told you about him, remember?" I didn't, and I have a memory like a corkboard. Then she added, "He's intense but brilliant, like weirdly in sync with what I need sometimes. You'd actually like him if you talked more. What I need." That phrase stuck to me like wet paper. I asked if he was staying into town long. "Just until the offsite ends," she said. "Then he's back to Boston." Boston, of course. Far enough to feel temporary, close enough to slip in undetected. The rest of the week, I started noticing things. Not big dramatic clues, no lipstick on collars or mysterious perfume, just absences. Little things that had quietly disappeared without warning. The ceramic mug she always used for green tea, gone. The leather notebook with her initials embossed in the corner, vanished from the desk. Her sleep schedule, shifted by a full hour. She started doing her skincare routine with the door closed. She never used to. She said it was because the light was too harsh for me when I was trying to sleep. But I wasn't sleeping anyway. And then, Friday. I came home from work early. School had a power outage. I texted her, got no response. Thought maybe she was in a meeting. No big deal. I walked in, and immediately something felt off. The air was fresher, almost too fresh. Like someone had aired out the entire place and reset it to default. There was a second coffee mug in the sink. Hers was there, yes, but the second wasn't one of ours. Different shape, different color, branded with a logo I didn't recognize. Kinera Group. I Googled it later. It was a consulting firm with offices in Boston. I told myself it meant nothing, that maybe she picked it up at work, that maybe I was spinning out. I left the mug where it was, didn't even rinse it, just stood over the sink staring at it, like it might confess something if I looked hard enough. She called me that evening, asked if I needed anything while she was still downtown. I said no. She said, okay, then, just as she was about to hang up, she added, by the way, Simon loved your toast the other night. I didn't know what to say. Did he? I asked. Yeah, he thought it was poetic, unexpected. She laughed gently. He said you have more layers than you let on. I hung up first, and for the first time in years, I slept on the couch, not out of anger, not even out of principle. I just didn't want to dream next to her anymore, but dreams came anyway. And in all of them, I was sitting at that damn table, and he was the one wearing my wedding ring. I used to think betrayal would feel like a thunderclap, sudden, obvious, cinematic. But in reality, it's a rusted leak, slow, quiet, and persistent, until one day you realize the floor beneath your feet is no longer safe to stand on. Saturday came and went. She said she had prep work for the Lisbon off-site, and I didn't question it. I nodded. I offered to bring her tea. I played the part. I even fixed the curtain rod in the guest room because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. It was easier to wrestle drywall anchors than confront whatever the hell was blooming in the corners of my mind. Sunday morning, I caught her standing in the driveway, deep in conversation on the phone. It was cold outside. She hadn't even put on a jacket, just pacing in her slippers, one hand on her temple like the person on the other end was reading her mind. When she noticed me watching from the window, she waved and held up a finger, the 1 sec gesture, then turned her back and lowered her voice. That was new. Mira never hid her calls. Half the time she'd put them on speaker and leave them blaring while she microwaved soup. When she came back in, I asked who it was. She smiled, brushed it off. Oh, just Kara from my team, stressing about the Lisbon deck again. Poor girl can't disconnect even on weekends. Then she kissed me on the cheek, just once, soft and practiced, and disappeared into the study for the next 5 hours. At some point, I found myself in the laundry room, folding her sweaters like a monk performing a ritual. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping to find a note, a receipt, a loose thread. But everything was clean, sterile. The smell of lavender dryer sheets was almost mocking. That night, she fell asleep with her laptop open. I wasn't going to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But the screen was right there, open to a document titled Lisbon Partners Alt Final PPTX. I clicked, and then I wished I hadn't. It was a presentation, high-level strategy deck, beautiful formatting, world-class branding. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the slide notes, specifically the speaker notes under slide 14, titled Cross-Regional Collaborations. It read, Simon to open this section, discuss value of agile trust building across personal boundaries. Add anecdote about Ellis if audience feels cold. I stared at that sentence for 5 full minutes. Across personal boundaries. Anecdote about me. If things got cold. I didn't know what that meant. Not exactly. But I knew it wasn't good. She was bringing him to Lisbon. That was obvious now. She hadn't said that. She had made it sound like a virtual sync. But this was a live keynote deck. Simon was speaking, and I was a backup anecdote, a temperature check, a human property. I closed the file without saving. I didn't touch anything else. She woke up 10 minutes later. I pretended I was just getting a glass of water. She didn't question it. She never does. The next morning, I emailed the school and requested time off for next Thursday and Friday. Said it was for medical reasons. That wasn't a lie. Something inside me had definitely started to die. There's a moment, and I mean a very specific kind of moment, where suspicion tips into certainty, and the floor under your life just vanishes. Mine came 3 days later, just after sunrise, while Mira was still asleep with her back to me, her breath shallow and rhythmically distant. The same woman who once used to pull my arm around her in her sleep now curled toward the far edge of the bed, like she was sharing it with obligation, not love. I hadn't planned to look again, truly. I had promised myself after the deck incident that I wouldn't go further, that if I was going to confront anything, it would be with words, not snooping. But the problem was, I knew. And knowing without proof is like drowning with your eyes open. So at 6:12 a.m., while she muttered something incoherent in her dreams, I slid out of bed, padded to the hallway, and opened her tablet. I chose it because she never logged out of anything on it. I knew the passcode. It hadn't changed in 4 years. Our anniversary, September 28th. It opened without resistance. That made me angrier than I expected. I wasn't sure what I was even looking for, but I went to the Photos app first. There were the usual things: scanned receipts, her sister's baby shower, screenshots of half-written tweets she never posted. But then I noticed something strange. There was an album, recently updated, titled Lisbon. Now, keep in mind, the Lisbon offsite hadn't even happened yet. That was still 3 days away. So why would she already have a dedicated album for it? I opened it. Inside were 6 photos. The first 5 were innocuous. Team dinner from weeks ago, brainstorming sessions with post-it notes on glass walls, a group selfie with too many filter edits. But the sixth was different. It was a photo of a hotel room, not a selfie. Not a group pic, just a room, sleek, minimalist, 2 wine glasses on the edge of the desk, a silver watch beside them. I zoomed in, hand trembling. That same watch I had seen at the dinner. The same one guest, Simon, had worn. The time on the watch read 11:46. The AM or PM didn't matter. What did matter was the reflection. Barely visible in the window behind the desk, warped by the glass but unmistakable, was the silhouette of 2 figures, standing close. One had long hair pulled back in a bun. The other had broad shoulders and an open collar. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't airdrop it. I just stared, like it might blink or breathe or whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. I closed the app and sat on the hallway floor for 20 minutes. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even blink. Just sat there like a child hiding from a thunderstorm, hoping the house might uncollapse if I stayed still long enough. Later that morning, over coffee, I casually asked what hotel she was staying at in Lisbon. She said the name quickly. Too quickly. Oh, just the Park Continental. The team booked a block. Then she changed the subject before I could ask how many rooms she had reserved. I didn't press. I just nodded and said, "Sounds nice." Before she left for work, she kissed me on the forehead. Not the lips, not the cheek. The forehead. Like I was a dying pet or something she was proud of once. I sat at the kitchen table for 2 hours after she left. And then I opened my laptop. If she was going to Lisbon with a man she once called a close friend, I needed to know who this man really was. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even looking for a confrontation. I was looking for clarity. Or maybe, for the first time in my life, I was looking for courage. I spent most of that Tuesday in front of my laptop, not at school, not in bed, not even really at home, but in this strange headspace that didn't feel like mine anymore. Like I'd been evicted from my own mind and was just squatting inside it temporarily. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I just opened tabs. Dozens of them. Each one a breadcrumb I followed with the quiet desperation of someone who wasn't sure if they wanted to find something or prove there was nothing at all. I started simple. Google. It's Simon Canera Boston Consulting. His last name wasn't Canera, of course. That was the company on the coffee mug I found in the sink. But I remembered Mira once let it slip that he was one of the founding partners. I figured that was enough of a lead. Except there was no Simon listed on the Canera Group website. Not in leadership, not in press releases, not even in the boilerplate employee blurbs. Strange for a founding partner. I checked LinkedIn. Dozens of Simons in consulting, none with Mira's company listed in shared posts, comments, or likes. No mutual connections, no tags, nothing. It was like he didn't exist online, or worse, like he'd been erased. At first I thought maybe he used a fake name on social platforms, but that didn't track. His name was on the place card at the dinner, even if it only said guest. That meant HR had to know. Travel team had to know. Legal. These events don't happen without paperwork. So, I did something I've never done before. I logged into Mira's desktop, not the tablet, her actual work laptop. I'd seen her password once, over her shoulder months ago. And it hadn't changed. It was our old cat's name, and the last 4 digits of her high school locker combo. She never thought anyone would guess it. I opened her work email. My hands were shaking. Her inbox was cleaner than I expected. Flagged folders, color-coded labels, almost surgical. But there was a subfolder under Archive called SK. My heart skipped. I opened it. Hundreds of emails, most professional, deadlines, timelines, pitch decks, vendor approvals. But here's the thing. All of them were one-on-one threads. No other team copied. No managers, no assistants, just her and him. Then I saw one that made my blood go cold. Subject line, Lisbon rooming, confirmation, no attachments. Just a single sentence. Room 1714 is confirmed. Under my name, no shared company records. Key at reception, no ID needed, wear the green dress. No signatures, no emojis, no XX or hearts, or anything you'd expect in a dramatic affair. Just logistics, clean, cold, planned. That was the moment it became real. Not just a vibe, not a maybe, a plan, a structure, a system of deception carefully built and coordinated. It wasn't just spontaneous passion. It was architecture. And the worst part? She had a folder for him, a dedicated hidden folder, like he was his own department in her life. I started shaking so hard I almost knocked over the desk lamp. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I took a screenshot, not of the email, but of the inbox itself, of the folder, the dates, the volume, enough to remind myself later that I wasn't crazy. I saved it to a flash drive, the one I used for lesson plans and midterm rubrics. Then I logged out, unplugged the drive, and just sat in the dark for almost an hour. At some point, I realized I hadn't spoken out loud all day, that I hadn't actually heard my own voice since yesterday. When Mira came home that night, I asked her how work was. She said it was fine. She asked if I wanted to watch that show we used to watch, the one about time-traveling chefs. I said I had a headache. She didn't argue. She kissed me on the forehead again. Always the forehead now. As she went to brush her teeth, I noticed something new. A gift bag tucked into the side pocket of her suitcase. Still zipped, but visible. It had the logo of the same hotel from the Lisbon photo, Park Continental. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew it wasn't for me. The question was, who exactly was it for? Because if Simon didn't exist on any company record and wasn't on any team list, then who or what was he? And what had Mira really gotten herself into? There are moments in your life that feel like turning a key in a lock you didn't know existed. You don't know what's on the other side, but you feel it. That almost electrical certainty. That once the door opens, it'll never close again. For me, that key turned the night before her flight. She was in the shower. I heard the water come on while I was in the living room, pretending to read. It gave me 7, maybe 8 minutes. Enough time. I wasn't even looking for anything new. Just going through motions, retracing old steps to see if I'd missed something. A drawer here, a folder there. Then, by accident, I bumped my knee into the upright piano in the hallway. We don't even play. Mira bought it because she said it made the house look lived in. Something about visual warmth. When I went to rub my knee, I noticed the thin seam near the pedals, a slight lift in the bottom panel, like something had been forced open before. I crouched, slipped my fingers under the edge, and pried gently. Inside, taped against the back wall, was a plain manila envelope. No label, no handwriting, just a thin red sticker sealing the flap shut. I hesitated, but only for a second. I peeled it open and slid out the contents. Inside were 5 Polaroids, not printed phone pics, real, tangible, chemically developed Polaroids, like someone wanted them to never exist digitally. The first was a hotel hallway, room 1714, the number visible in soft golden light. The second, Mira and Simon, standing at what looked like a train platform. She was wearing a white coat I'd never seen before. He had his hand around her waist, not possessively, but comfortably, like someone who did it often. The third, a candid shot of Mira sitting on a hotel bed, facing away from the camera. She was looking into a mirror. She wasn't smiling. She looked conflicted, or maybe just tired, but it was unmistakably her. The fourth, a close-up of a contract, not entirely legible, with the Canara logo at the top and a signature at the bottom. Mira's name was printed beneath it. Not as employee, but as independent liaison. And the fifth wasn't a photo. It was a printed scan of an email, an internal one, addressed to a name I didn't recognize, from a kineragroup.org domain. The subject line, Personal Leverage Protocol Approved, Lisbon Directive green-lit. Beneath it, a highlighted sentence, Assets with emotional ties confirmed, target unaware, trust dynamics stable, room secured. I didn't understand all of it. Not then, but I understood enough. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just a woman making a mistake, or even living a double life. This was something coordinated, organized, scripted, almost. Like Mira was part of something, or being used by something. And I wasn't just a clueless husband anymore. I was part of the script. I put everything back exactly as I found it, even retaped the envelope. Then I sat in the kitchen, lights off, waiting for the sound of the bathroom door. When she walked past me in her robe, she didn't see me at first. She jumped when I spoke. "Do you trust me?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Do you trust me?" I said again. "Like, if something was happening to you, something bigger than either of us, would you let me help?" She stared at me for a second too long. Then she smiled, just barely. "Of course," she said. But her voice had changed. It had gone smaller, softer, like she wasn't sure she believed it either. She kissed me goodnight and went to bed. I didn't follow. I stayed at the kitchen table until sunrise, the question echoing in my skull like a drumbeat. If Mira wasn't cheating on me, then what the hell was she doing? The morning of her flight to Lisbon, I watched Mira pack a suitcase like it was any other trip. Neat folds, symmetrical shoes, liquids in regulation-sized bottles. She moved with precision, methodical, detached, like she wasn't thinking about where she was going, just how to fit her life into a regulation carry-on. I offered to drive her to the airport. She said no, it's too early, and I'll be back in 2 days anyway. She said it with a laugh, like the brevity of her absence somehow proved its innocence. As she zipped up the suitcase, I noticed the green dress she'd hung on the back of the closet door the night before was gone. I hadn't seen her pack it, I hadn't seen her fold it, but it was gone. Just like that. Like it had never been there. She kissed me on the cheek, said she'd text when she landed. Then she was gone. The house was too quiet after that. No toothbrush buzz, no mug clinking against the granite, just the hum of appliances and the soft ticking of the thermostat. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the indention she left in the blanket, and for some reason I thought about the first time I saw her cry. It was 6 years ago, when her mother died suddenly. She sat on the floor of our kitchen and wept into a dish towel. I didn't know what to say, so I just sat beside her and cried too. That was the first time she ever told me she felt safe with someone. Now, I wasn't sure she felt anything at all. I went back to the piano. This time, I didn't stop with the envelope. I removed the panel completely and felt around the inside for anything else. Documents, notes, hidden drives. But there was nothing. No hidden panels, no false bottoms. It was just a shell now. Whatever truth had lived inside it had already been pulled out and used. So I turned to the last lead I had. The email printout. The phrase that had lodged itself in my head like a splinter I couldn't dislodge. Target unaware. Trust dynamics stable. It wasn't just cold, it was clinical, strategic, like someone had written it with gloves on. I copied the sentence into a search engine just in case it showed up in some obscure white paper or internal policy leak. And unbelievably, something did come up. Not a match, but a breadcrumb. A single result. A research paper hosted on a private server, buried behind an expired grant program website. The paper was titled Behavioral Engineering in Voluntary Civilian Environments, a trust-triggered activation model. No author name, no university. Just 42 pages of dense, chilling theory. It described a concept I'd never heard before, emotion-based compliance structures. In short, the idea that emotional intimacy could be engineered to elicit untraceable cooperation from people who had no idea they were being manipulated. I read through the entire thing, sweating. My eyes burned. I couldn't tell if I was being paranoid or just catching up with something I'd been too naive to see. And then, buried in the appendix, I saw a reference to Kinera Group, not as a research contributor, not as a partner, as the origin point. They hadn't just funded the model, they had built it. That's when I started to understand. Simon wasn't just Mira's close friend. He wasn't her affair. He was a handler, or worse, a trigger. Someone deployed to reinforce the illusion of autonomy while constructing a reality where trust, intimacy, and compliance overlapped. Mira didn't just fall for someone. She was either being used or was in on it, and I didn't know which version scared me more. I closed the document and just sat there, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I was never meant to see that file. I was never meant to know about room 1714. And I sure as hell was never meant to find that envelope. The next move was no longer about confronting her. It was about protecting myself. Because if someone was willing to manipulate my marriage this carefully, what else were they willing to do? I walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. My face looked like mine, but my eyes didn't. They looked older, worn down, not broken, not yet, but close. Then I noticed something. There, taped to the underside of the medicine cabinet, was another envelope, smaller, sealed, and it had my name on it. Just Ellis. No message, no return address, no explanation. I didn't open it, not yet, because something told me once I did, whatever life I thought I had left would finally completely be gone. I held that envelope for hours. I walked with it through the house, past the framed photo from our Banff trip, past the dining table I built with my own hands, past the coat rack where Mira used to hang her scarves, one of which I hadn't seen in weeks. I didn't open it, not yet. I needed the house to be completely still. I needed the world to shrink down into something quiet, something manageable, something I could finally control. I waited until just after midnight. Then, sitting at the kitchen table with a single lamp on, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No salutation, no sign-off, no decoration, just typed words, clean and centered, like something from a resignation letter or a will. You were always more awake than I hoped you'd be. I'm sorry you got caught in this. I didn't know how far it would go. I didn't know who I'd become by the end. I promise you this wasn't about breaking you. It was about building me. I did love you. Some part of me still does. Please don't follow, and please, please live something real. My heart didn't break. It didn't even ache. It just slowed, settled. Because in that moment, I finally understood. Mira had been both victim and architect. Maybe she started with good intentions, career growth, independence, something for herself. But somewhere along the line, the machinery she stepped into reshaped her. Or maybe she reshaped herself to fit it. Either way, the woman I married had left long before this letter reached my hands. But the letter wasn't a threat. It wasn't an attack. It was a release. The next morning, I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't send a reply. I did something else instead. I went outside, walked the entire neighborhood loop. No headphones, no music, just air and footsteps. The sky was cloudless. The trees were starting to bloom again, almost defiantly, like nature itself had decided grief was optional. When I came back home, I opened the windows, every single one. I let the breeze in, let the silence out. I brewed coffee, sat on the porch, waved to my neighbor who was walking her dog. Then I made a list, a real list, of all the things I had wanted to do but never did. Not because Mira stopped me, but because I'd stopped myself, waiting for the life I thought we were building to finally begin. The first item on the list: apply for the art residency in Mendocino. I used to paint. She said it was sentimental. I stopped. The second: adopt a dog, not a practical dog, a chaotic one with a crooked tail. The third: tell my brother I forgive him. We hadn't spoken in years, over something small, something petty. The fourth: write this story down, all of it. So I did. I wrote it not to expose Mira, not to warn others, but to prove to myself that I lived it, that it mattered, that I was here, and that what happened didn't have to be a story about being fooled, but about waking up. Mira never returned to the house. I received a certified letter weeks later, logistics, financials, an apology woven into legal phrasing. I didn't contest anything. I didn't need to. I kept one thing: the envelope with my name. I framed it, not out of pain, but because in the end, it reminded me that someone else's secret could become your freedom, if you let it. Now I wake up when I want. I keep fresh flowers in the kitchen. I paint again. I teach my students about volcanoes and constellations and the nervous system like it's all connected, because maybe it is. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind shifts just right and the old piano creaks in the hallway, I don't get angry. I smile, because I didn't get justice. I got peace, and sometimes peace is the better ending.